Hi all, and welcome to yet another episode of my YouTube channel. My name's Monique, as you know, and I just like empowering people to make that transition into like really amazing, fulfilling and limitless lives. So yeah, and I've almost invited you on a journey with me to do the same thing, so it's really cool. Alright, so I'll jump straight in. I wanted to talk to you today about something that often holds us back. Something that often causes a lot of failures, a lot of people giving up on their dreams and their goals and just not feeling good enough. And it's so funny because you wouldn't class this as a negative thing, and I wouldn't say it's a negative thing if used the right way, but it's thinking. And you're like, what? Thinking? Yeah, the mind, thinking. I was talking about the other day how when you have an idea, that you should remove thinking from the process. If you're really serious about executing it, you should remove thinking from the process, and that you should only reserve thinking for scheduled times or moments when you're physically sitting down working on the project. For example, say you have an amazing business idea, amazing thing you want to do, and you've got the idea, that's it, you want to do it. Now, in order to execute it, you need to take some sort of action, right? So you take an action and then you'd start to think, and then you think some more, you think about why it may not be able to work, think about those obstacles, and most people will be able to kind of, you know, back those obstacles out of the way and be like, well, this is a solution and that's a solution. But in most case scenarios, that thinking kind of leads downhill, especially if your idea is fresh and new and something you've never done before, unless you seek out as well a mentor to intercept those thoughts and someone that will say, oh, I know how you can do the next steps. So it's this thinking that almost destroys the creative process, and it almost intercepts you executing your idea, because you've had your idea, you've taken a small action, say you've bought a domain name or something, and then all of a sudden you've realised it won't work, how you're going to get people to buy it, how you're going to find the money to invest in it, and all of a sudden your thinking has intercepted your idea and then you can't execute it. So I came up with the concept of removing thinking from something you want to execute, other than like timed moments. So say you have the idea but you do need to think about your next steps. You'd set aside some time. This is what I suggest anyway. You set aside some time at your desk, maybe 1 to 2 p.m. or something crazy, whatever time works for you, and then you say, this is my scheduled time to work on the project. That means all the other hours in the day are freed up for you to have inspired thought, inspired ideas, be present, enjoy moments, enjoy conversations with your friends, enjoy finding out new, coming across new things that are just going to inspire you anyway to continue with your project. But the thinking is not involved, and the thinking is only reserved for the time when you're literally sitting in front of your computer working on your project. Okay, what should I do next? Maybe I should Google this, maybe I should Google. Do you understand what I mean? So instead of idea, action, thinking, getting thrown off track, thinking, maybe a small action, thinking again, and then quitting, you'd go idea, action, then you'd go faith, because you want it to work and you know it's going to work and you have faith it's going to work. Faith coupled with action is so powerful. Faith, and then more action, and that action will be consistent action until what you want is executed and you've done it. Do you get it? So there's no thinking in that process. There's only sheer action, sheer faith, sheer action, sheer faith, and then controlled thinking. Whereas when you let your mind run wild, your mind really does run wild with you. And I use myself as an example. As you probably know, I think a lot. I'm very analytical. And that sometimes works to my detriment, because if I don't control what goes in and out of my mind in terms of like what I watch, what I read, or if I just kind of like, don't catch myself when I'm thinking negative thoughts or thinking a thought that doesn't serve me, then my mind just goes on a spiral and I can be locked up in my head for like the whole day. And people some people won't notice, and some people close to me will be like, I can see you thinking, Monique, because you literally get trapped in this mental state where you're trying to work things out, but actually you're never actually going to work anything out when you're trapped in your mind. You don't actually have any space for solutions when you're crowding your mind with all of these negative or all of these repetitive thoughts. And we think we're serving ourselves. We think that by overthinking we're going to come up with an answer all of a sudden, but let me tell you something, that never happens unless it's controlled thought, unless the reason why you're thinking is to find the solution. But most of the time your thoughts kind of go in a spiral, and they end up just spiraling round and round and round and getting worse and worse and worse and worse until your feeling and your actual attitude is affected, and then all of a sudden you're stuck in a funk, and then the cycle continues because you're stuck in a funk. And then, you know, the mental state continues, stuck in a funk, as in F-U-N-K. And yeah, so what I propose is to kind of, you know, catch yourself when you're thinking those thoughts. And also another thing that I used to do, this is really honest of me, but another thing I used to do is literally paste over things with like happiness and be like, oh, don't worry, you know, imagine like you just crashed your car or something, oh, don't worry, I'm happy. And really you're like crushed inside, really you're like really upset, or you're angry, or you're frustrated, but actually you've pasted it over with this smile and with this positive attitude, but actually you don't genuinely feel happy inside. And I think the way to combat a negative thought with a positive thought is to actually understand what you're feeling in the moment. So, you know, acknowledge, okay, you know what, I might feel extremely, you know, upset right now. I might feel extremely frustrated, and I accept that I feel that way. However, and then the however allows you to understand why you're feeling that way, and all of a sudden, and this is all in the mind by the way, you don't have to say this out loud, and then you say, however, I understand that the reason why everything happens for a reason, or I understand that that person may have been frustrated today and that's why they may have lashed out on me. And all of a sudden your however and you understanding why you feel the way you feel doesn't make it seem so bad anymore. You're like, oh yeah, I understand that, and you know what, I choose to let it go. And as soon as you do that process where you think, so you have the negative thought or you have the feeling because you actually do feel upset or frustrated, and you acknowledge it, so it's acknowledgement. You acknowledge the feeling, I feel upset or I feel distressed, and then you say, well, however, I understand why I feel this way. However, you know, I understand why that may have happened regardless. And then you say, but I choose, and that choose is powerful. I choose to let it go, and I choose not to let this affect me. And it's not an easy process, don't get me wrong, but the more you do it, the easier your mind adjusts to it, and the easier you're able to be happier, because you're like, oh yeah, it's not a big deal, like they had a frustrating day, like who cares, I'm happy, you know, or I was frustrated for a second but I'm happy. And you know, you can actually train your mind to react to situations like this, and this is what happy people do until they're actually trained to be unaffected by things. So I don't agree with the idea of masking over your feelings with just a positive smile, because sometimes it really does crush you inside. You end up suppressing your emotions, and then it comes out in one big explosion, and everyone's like, whoa, like, I thought you were Mrs. Happy. And that's happened to me on a couple of occasions in the past, because that's how I used to deal with things. I used to be like, yeah, but you know, really I was crushed inside and I didn't let myself feel that, so it was just suppressed. So yeah, so that's what I recommend. That's that 3-step process basically. So yeah, what I would say is, don't get trapped in your head and in your thoughts. Instead, free up your mind, acknowledge how you're feeling, understand why you're feeling that way, and let it go. And in terms of your projects, have your idea, focus on action, and have a strong faith, and remove thinking from the process, except for physical times where you're sitting down and you're choosing to think about it, or choosing to do something with your mind that involves trying to find an answer or search for an answer. And lastly, what I will say is it's a process. It takes time, and it's not easy either, and yeah, it's easy to get trapped in the mind. I wanted to say a point there. Let me try and remember what it was I was going to say. That's what I was going to say. So when your mind is much more free, much more clear, so it helps you to be present as well, and being present is an amazing thing because it makes you more appreciative of your moments and of your connections with people and things and nature. But one thing that I will say is the more empty your mind is, the more inspired thought can drop in, and inspired thought is what you really want, because inspired thought is that thing that makes you call that particular client or call that particular person, and then all of a sudden you've got a deal on your hands because you've had inspired thought, and you're not hammering away at your clients and trying to think about ways to push things along, but actually your mind is clear, you have faith, you're executing action every time you have an idea, and your mind is free, so you can have inspired thoughts. And that's what you want. Inspired thought versus overthinking. Okay, so I hope that's helped you, and it certainly helped me. So yeah, I can't wait to see you next week. Don't forget to visit my website. I write about success stories and millionaires and billionaires and great things once a week, and I do these videos every week, so I release them on Sunday/Monday, but always look out for them on a Monday. They'll definitely be up. And yeah, let me know if you want to see anything, hear anything. Follow me on Instagram at Monique Lewis, and yeah, let me know what you think, and let's keep this journey and this conversation going. It's been really fun. Alright, bye guys.